good evening everyone. We're very pleased to welcome today to our clinic Sandra Greenbank, who's a very popular fertility nutritionist and works with a lot of patients here at IVF London. She runs her own company, Sandra Greenbank's Nutrition, and today we're going to focus our talk purely on nutrition and its impact on fertility. So welcome to IVF London, Sandra, and our viewers have sent a lot of questions to us with regards to fertility and nutrition and what they should be eating during conception or trying to conceive. So we've got quite a few questions that we're going to bombard you with today. And the first question that actually we've been sent, Sandra, is what does a fertility nutritionist do?
So a fertility nutritionist looks at diet, obviously, and we also look at lifestyle. When we see somebody in clinic, we'll take lots and lots of notes and questions, and we will look at potentially genetics, family history, and everything really that encompasses personalised nutrition.
And what common conditions do you tend to see in couples going through fertility treatment, or they come and see you when they're trying to optimize their fertility?
So generally, PCOS is really big, and I think that's partly because they tend to go to their GP, and the GP says, well, you have to lose weight and then you can have IVF, and then there's nothing else. And so we kind of help bridge that gap a little bit, and we try to see if we can help change the underlying driving factors to actually help that weight loss happen a bit more easily, I suppose, because what tends to happen is they go on the forums and then there's talk about the keto diet or like the low carb diet, which is a good weight loss diet, but it's not so good for ovulation and for fertility generally. So we kind of tend to, I tend to work a lot with PCOS. Thyroid problems tend to be quite big as well. Male fertility problems are getting more and more press, I suppose, and so there's more understanding about what we can do to help that. And I also tend to get a lot of people who just want to, they are going for IVF, perhaps through the NHS or perhaps privately, and they want to make sure that they're doing what they can to get the best chances of success, I suppose, with that round, so that they're not having to go for lots and lots.
Absolutely. Now, what can couples do at home to try and take nutrition in their own hands? And of course, you will get couples who come and see you, say, twice or thrice, but a lot of this has to be done at home. So what can our viewers do to try and optimize their nutrition?
So the best diet really for fertility has been proven again and again is the Mediterranean diet. So lots and lots of fruit and vegetables, some meat, some eggs, some fish, olive oil, and the avoidance of the shelf-stable foods and the cakes and those types of things that are not homemade. So cooking at home is something really simple that we can all kind of start doing a little bit more of, and avoiding getting those kind of prepackaged foods, because what they tend to contain is the wrong types of fats that are actually really unhelpful for all of our bodily cells and obviously for fertility as well. And they tend to lack generally in nutrition as well because they're prepackaged. And so you're just cooking from scratch at home, eating plenty of fruit and vegetables, probably a little bit more than the 5 a day, and making sure that they're not lacking any nutrients. So for example, if they have to cut some food out, or a food group for example, or something like dairy, if you have to cut dairy out for a health reason, you need to make sure that you're getting your iodine and your protein and your vitamin D and your calcium from somewhere else. So that can be a little bit more tricky for somebody to manage on their own. And there are obviously lots of different things that we need to make sure that if somebody has a health condition, that they're also managed properly with that.
Do you get any kind of very diet-specific requests for advice, such as from vegans? So we see a lot of patients who are either vegans or vegetarian, and they often ask us the question that, well, I don't eat meat, I don't eat fish. What can I eat to get the optimum nutrition?
Yeah, it's a really tricky one actually. There are a lot of nutrients that will be lacking from a vegan diet. So B12, for example, is not available in a vegan diet, so you have to take a supplement.
Yeah.
Vitamin D generally comes from oily fish and dairy foods, and the sun, obviously, at certain times of the year. You can get enough protein, but what I tend to see when I do the more sophisticated tests is that actually you may have enough protein, but you don't have, some of the amino acids are very lacking, and we need all of the amino acids really for proper, for egg health and for fertility, and for that embryonic development.
Right.
What else? Iodine. Did I mention iodine?
Yes, you
That's
did.
missing. Iron, depending on how they eat. So a vegan diet can be very healthy because it can be very heavy on vegetables, which is very good. But a vegan diet can also be very unhealthy. You can eat pasta and chips all day long, and that's vegan. And it is important to also supplement. Oh, and I also forgot to mention the omega-3 fats as well.
So do you say that with couples attending fertility treatment, the advice that we can be giving as clinicians is that at least try and go vegetarian rather than vegan, so that you can incorporate dairy into the diet?
Dairy or eggs.
Eggs,
Eggs if they would accept that. If not, I think if somebody is vegan or even vegetarian, I think they should work with a specialist to make sure that they're getting. It could be one of the underlying factors for the problem in the first place. We want to make sure we're putting everything in place, because not just to get pregnant, but to have a healthy baby and a healthy mum at the end of the pregnancy as well. Because the baby takes the nutrients from the mother's stores, and often the baby will get what baby needs, but mum will suffer.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So in terms of the journey with you and your patients, how long in advance, or how much in advance does a couple need to come and see you before they're trying to conceive?
So it depends a bit on their goals, it depends a bit on their situation, I guess. If they have some underlying problem that they know of that's potentially complicated, then a bit longer, but generally I would say 3 months. If I can get 3 months with a couple, that means that it takes about 3 months to develop an egg from the kind of dormant stage to be fully ready to ovulate. And it's the same with sperms. If I get 3 months with a couple, that is really, really good. Often if someone's going for IVF, that we don't have that option, or they might already have an embryo in the freezer, and they want to make sure that they're preparing their body and their resilience, I suppose, to get through the treatment, to deal with the drugs, to have a really healthy treatment cycle. And so, that could be a month. I guess ideally it depends a little bit on what the problem has been running up to it.
What cycle-specific advice can you give to a couple that are going through actively fertility treatment?
It's really important to make sure that the drugs that you're taking are safe to take with the supplements that you have.
Sure.
And also, making sure that we're not having something like grapefruit juice, for example, which can actually clear the medication quicker from the body.
Okay.
Or milk thistle, again, which people take for liver health. It actually speeds up the clearance of the medication from the body. And some of the fertility multivitamins actually contain milk thistle. So we need to make sure that the supplements are safe for sure. I think also caffeine ideally should be avoided. I also ask my clients to avoid plastics as much as possible, because that can interfere quite a lot with hormones.
Okay.
And so we just want to calm everything down, I suppose, and to make sure that we're not over-exercising as well, because that creates inflammation and stress potentially in the body. That we just have to calm everything down and nourish ourselves in body and mind, I suppose.
Sure. Sandra, we often get asked that men get ignored when it comes to nutrition, and generally men are very lax when it comes to the nutrition, especially when it comes to drinking, smoking, lifestyle, etc. So what nutritional deficiencies do men have that come and see you potentially to optimize their sperm health?
So, it's interesting that you say that, because I was talking to a group of nutritionists the other day, and they said, "Oh, how many men find you?" Or, and I said, "Do you know what? Actually, it's only ever once has a man dragged his wife into my outfit."
Right.
It's usually the other way around.
Yes.
And I think that men are just so generally in when it comes to fertility treatment, they're just kind of left in the corner of the room, and even if actually they are the one that potentially had a problem identified, it's their partner that's having the treatment on their behalf. So I think firstly there's a lot of guilt and pressure and feelings of just being completely, like you said, ignored in the whole process. But there is so much you can do. Firstly, to improve your own fertility, but also to support your partner, because you can make changes together, and then you feel like you're doing something, and you're not just sitting in a corner and waiting for somebody to medicate your partner. And but I think that again, going back to that, cooking at home, focusing on all of the foods really that are fresh, and you go to the food, the vegetable aisle, the fruit, the meat, the eggs, and maybe the grains, and we don't need to go into so many other areas of the supermarket, but specific nutrients. So zinc is one that comes up all the time. Men take zinc, but what we forget is actually that we can't absorb zinc unless we have enough stomach acid for the reaction to occur, so that you can absorb it. So we can take lots of supplements, but if we're not absorbing it, then that's not helpful necessarily. So what we want to do is make sure that our digestion is working properly. So even looking at whether you're having IBS type symptoms or reflux, that can be a symptom that you're not actually absorbing your zinc and your iron and your magnesium and your other minerals properly. But zinc is one of the antioxidants. So we know that antioxidants are very protective of the sperm, and zinc specifically protects the head of the sperm, which is where the DNA is kept, that's actually passed on. So zinc is one of the most important ones. Omega-3 is really important as well for men. And when it comes to maybe supplementation, we look at the antioxidants as well. So CoQ10, for example, is one that we use quite a lot. NAC, glutathione, you might have heard about. Those are more specialist. But again, the antioxidants come from all the colourful fruit and vegetables, and each colour provides a different set of antioxidants. So you want the blues and the greens and the reds and the oranges, all the rainbow really. And again, that's something quite simple that you can do. And in terms of lifestyle, we want to avoid heat to the area, because that can be quite damaging. Saunas, cycling. Cycling also puts us in front of potentially quite a lot of traffic fumes, which uses up our antioxidants. So if you're somebody that loves to cycle, try and go the scenic route as opposed to the more traffic routes. You can actually buy a saddle with a little dip in it, so that's actually keeping it less pressure on the area. And hot baths, ideally, if men can give those a break for a few months, that's really helpful. Alcohol, caffeine for men not so much as women, but I still think it's worth keeping it to 1 cup or 2 cups a day. I once worked with a man who would have 17 cups of coffee a day, and that's probably not harmful for anybody. And again, alcohol, caffeine, processed foods, sugar, they put pressure on the liver, so the liver then has extra work to do. Whereas if we can just take away that pressure, that can be really helpful. And those are things that you can change, small changes you can make together and support each other.
Absolutely.
It's hard to make a change on your own, really.
So Sandra, it's great to hear what we can get from foods, but we all know that everyone nowadays has a very nuclear lifestyle, meaning they have a very fast life. People hardly have time to go and do their grocery shopping. Everyone relies on frozen foods. Sometimes we, husband and wife both work, they barely get that 10 minutes to quickly fix something in the kitchen. Now, in cases like this, which is more and more what we see, are these couples justified in saying, can we just take supplements or tablets to fulfill our nutritional needs?
So supplements, I think, are just that. They are just supplementing your diet and lifestyle. We can't just take a pill and hope for the best, and assume that that's going to cancel out anything else that's going on in our lives that's potentially detrimental. I do think, there's a case for kind of learning to look at your life a little bit and sort of saying no to potentially some things and just taking it a little bit easier and focusing on you and, your health when we are going into a cycle, because we know that your mental well-being actually plays into, your brain is always listening to what is going on and putting out hormones in response to that. So, I sometimes tell clients to just cancel all their engagements and maybe watch a comedy or do something that they used to enjoy doing together, because, it increases endorphins and that can be really helpful as well. But, there are so many little things you can do. So even if you have to have a microwave meal, get some fresh broccoli and just steam that.
Okay.
It doesn't take more than a few minutes to
Sure.
steam some broccoli, even in the microwave. Frozen vegetables actually can contain more nutrients than fresh, because they're
That's very
frozen
interesting.
fresh.
Yeah, that's very interesting to hear. Because I think the myth is try and stay away from frozen vegetables. But
Frozen vegetables, so peas, I always give peas, fresh, frozen blueberries, wild blueberries in my freezer. There's lots and lots of things you can keep in your freezer. You can make a smoothie maybe in the morning, for example, with frozen blueberries, maybe some milk, some oats, some kale wouldn't go amiss. You probably would, if you go to the blender, you wouldn't notice. So that's a really good kind of nutrient hit that doesn't take long.
brilliant. And our last question is, when women are pregnant, and of course that's when they feel that they really need to pay a lot of attention to their nutrition, not just their nutrition, the nutrition for the baby as well. What advice would you give to women who conceive, obviously through IVF, and these pregnancies are very precious? So what advice would you give to a pregnant patient?
So first of all, baby's safe. There's nothing that you can eat that's going to cause a miscarriage. Or, if you have to have that cup of coffee, you have to. But do remember also that the baby's generally exposed to what you're exposed to as well. So again, I do think that actually reducing the amount of toxins that we put ourselves in front of is actually quite useful. So eating organic reduces the pesticide residue on the food. It does tend to also have slightly more higher levels of nutrients in them. And also when it comes to organic meat, for example, they're not using unnecessary medications with those animals, so that can be helpful as well. It's important to remember that we should eat sort of twice as well, but not twice as much, because you don't need more calories until the last trimester. And actually your body is really interesting in that it actually adapts and absorbs more nutrients from the food that you are eating during pregnancy. So it's almost, your body knows what it needs to do anyway. But it's important to get that omega-3, so ideally some oily fish, but not too much because of the toxins. So the guidelines are 2 portions of oily fish a week.
Okay.
Any more than that, and you're potentially getting too much mercury. The smaller fish is better, so the sardines, for example, would be better than. We should stay away from saltfish really, but a couple of portions of salmon or sardines is a really good idea. Folate remains important, especially through the first trimester. You would be taking 400 micrograms of folate anyway through that time, but I like to always make sure that we're getting more than just the baseline. So green vegetables, kale, peas, broccoli, spinach, those are kind of good things to always try and have every single day if possible. Making sure you get your calcium again, so if you're dairy free, you do need to make sure that you're getting your calcium. So you can look at tahini, for example, sesame seeds, watercress if it's in season. It's hard to get out of season. And your protein, magnesium, zinc is really important as well for women's brain health, and I think that for those women who maybe have a history in their family or their own history of postnatal depression or prenatal depression, zinc is very, very, very important. It's frequently low, like I said, because of stress and our lifestyle actually hinder our absorption of zinc. So it's really important to make sure that we're getting that. Pumpkin seeds is a good thing to snack on, for example. And again, for the brain health, the omega-3, again, that's why that's so important. And following the NHS guidelines on the things to avoid as well is really important, and that's just very easy to look up, and it does keep changing. So.
Brilliant, thank you.